Welcome to Crossing Darkness, a podcast about role-playing games ranging from games set in the world of darkness to MMORPGs like EVE Online and everything in between. We broadcast live over Twitch and are open to answering questions during the show. I'm your host, Frozen Fallout. My co-host is Motor Rory, who helped me create this podcast as well as a 40-person, 4-table Gen Con event. Did I lose you, Mike? Can you hear me, Mike?
I'm sorry, my bandwidth is really terrible right now. Hello, everyone, and today we have special guest Matt Hatch here to tell us his gaming stories. Matt, how is the life of a gamer treating you these days?
Kind of fantastic. I mean, it's way better than I deserve. I think it's kind of like a renaissance period for role playing. I mean, I know I'm not able to meet in person because of this crazy pandemic stuff, but I think online role playing is really exploding right now.
Yeah, we were just talking beforehand about how you've got like 3 games going on right now, and I was just telling you that I've got 3 games going on right now. So what are the games that you're playing or possibly running right now?
I've got a mage game been running for a little bit. I've got Umbligo del Diablo that I've been playing in for 2 years, a little more now. Or no, just over a year, I take that back. And, a D&D game I've been playing in for about a year. Yeah, they're all going pretty swimmingly.
Awesome. Yeah. So, how'd you get into gaming in general? What was the kind of springboard that got you into this crazy world that we all love?
Um, Not sure. Heavy metal? Um,
Oh yeah.
D&D? Vampire cards? Like, Vampire: The Eternal Struggle cards?
Oh
I think that
yeah.
actually, like, led to Vampire the card game led into, like, Vampire the role-playing game tabletop when I was a kid, like, 13, 14, yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, you kind of started off in the card gaming arena. Was what was the first like official RPG that you played? Was it Dungeons and Dragons or was it Vampire the Masquerade or?
It was D&D. Like, I remember I tried that, like, before even card games came around, I think. But, yeah, that was, like, 5th or 6th grade, and it's kinda you know? We didn't know what we were up to, didn't know how to put together a narrative, and then it got better, get through junior high and high school, and you start being able to put together stories and ideas and just have fun. You know?
Interesting. So when you were, because that's interesting a lot, because I know a lot of people get involved usually in like their teenage years, and that's kind of when I was like 12 and 13 is when I started getting involved in that kind of stuff. So when you guys like started when you were a little bit younger than that, was it more of you guys just kind of found a book, or like how did you get introduced to Dungeons and Dragons? I'm guessing it was second edition.
Yeah, it was 2nd edition. Somebody's older brother, had, like, a decent collection of 2nd edition stuff. I think a buddy of mine named Mike, his older brother had a bunch of books, so we kind of like we didn't have to have any sort of investment besides time, which you have, a bunch when you're a little kid, you know.
Hmm.
And we would ask him to show us what's up with it, and he would be like, "No, you guys just read the books. You'll know what's up." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I got pushed into storytelling on that end, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know what I'm up to. Nobody knows what's going on." You know? Um, those kind of fizzled, we'd try for a couple sessions, and it'd be fun. Um, I don't remember which there was a couple adventures in the can that we actually stuck with, that worked out pretty well. I can't remember which ones offhand, but
Hmm.
yeah, those were cool. I think I think I really, really didn't get into role playing until White Wolf and stuff like that. You know, um, Definitely vampire. Then definitely Mage. Actually, the guy who storytells Implico del Diablo, I've been role playing with since I was like 14, 15. We met in middle school. I mean, it's been like forever. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's I've got one buddy that I go to Gen Con with, and well, a couple buddies that I go to Gen Con with, and we don't have like a regular gaming group that I play with them in right now, but we definitely do play when and do a bunch of stuff at like Gen Con together. But yeah, having those like long, you know, battle mates that have been through all the epic adventures with you, or at least a large portion, is always kind of awesome to build out that kind of narrative of your life with them and all the stories that you've been in. So when you got into Vampire, what was the introduction into that? Did you start off with like tabletop, or did you do anything with LARP at all at any point?
Yeah, no, I've done 3 or 4 LARPs. The most successful and fun I thought was actually ran by the guy who's running Imbligo del Diablo. Um, but it was interesting because it was like, we established goals and, like, win parameters, like, for over the course of a year, which I'd never done with, like, a long string LARP, and, that worked out pretty well. It's basically it was vampires controlling for control of the city. I mean, basically, it was filling the void. The prince had died. He'd been destroyed, and, that was what it was. I don't know.
How
It was
long
a
did that
struggle for
game run for?
Sacramento. Uh, just over a year, about 13 months, 14 months.
Okay,
It was only
awesome.
supposed to go a year, but it went a little longer.
Nice. So how many people were involved in that LARP?
26, 27.
Oh, size. Nice. Sizable. That's pretty solid.
It
Uh,
was spreadsheet nightmares for, like, the 3 people we designated as harpies, like, to keep track of everything. Yeah.
so with that large of a vampire population, what was the city that you guys were playing out of?
Uh, we're supposed to be in Sacramento. I mean, we physically were in Southern California, but in theory, it was political, social intrigue in the capital of California kind of stuff, you know?
Oh, cool. Yep. What's the population of the capital of if you know offhand? I was just wondering
I
what
got no
the
clue.
uh no, but yeah, that's interesting. So you guys had like so everybody kind of you definitely were able to fill out all the courtly positions and everything like that. And so the main storyline was just about like gathering up power and filling up the voids from the prince kind of dying. Do you remember any kind of memorable moments? Was there any kind of specific thing that kind of stands out as, well, this is the time that somebody jumped up and said, I'm the prince, and got shot down or something?
No, no, but there was the different networks of power were like phenomenally fun to um the different ways people were trying to like access and control things and the place of Sacramento. So like I remember there was 2 vampires that were vying for like cell phone companies and landline companies so that they could bug all of like the Capitol buildings. That was pretty interesting. There was a like pizza chain that was like pivotal in some ways because like so many of us invested so many resources in like fighting over them that it became like this thing because I guess all of us decided that pizza delivery guy was like the really good way to actually just, run drugs or guns or things that were more nefarious and you still had like this income aspect that was part of the game. I mean, like you had to have legitimate businesses that were part of your power structure.
Hmm.
So, um, I don't know. It was fascinating.
Wow. So were you a player, or were you a storyteller in this?
I was a player 80% of the time. I got roped into storytelling because eventually we needed 3 storytellers because we started out with like 12 of us and it grew and grew and grew and then it was like 27 and it was super unmanageable by the end. It was nuts. But I don't tell you guys if you guys ran a 40-person event for people that have never even met each other before, then I'm sure you're well aware with the crowding chaos.
Yeah, it was interesting. We needed 4 storytellers really in order to really pull that off. So I could see how, yeah, 3 is kind of when you're getting up into the 30s. It seems like about 1 storyteller every 10, depending. The more that you kind of have there is a certain degree of being able to kind of like put a lot into the characters and stuff like that. Especially for like one shots like that we ran, we built the characters. So as long as we gave out a bunch of information to the characters, and we did this tabletop LARP kind of mesh together where it's like it was tabletop rules. It was all about playing the council members and having meetings, but then they would do some epic mission or something like that, and we'd do some kind of like tabletop kind of stuff. But then we'd be like, okay, and now we're gonna do a downtime. It's gonna be a week's gonna go by, and you can just go talk to whoever you want. And you have vampires and werewolves and all these other people on your character sheet that you can go talk to. But we tried to make it so that the we set it so that the vampires were in their own group. You know, they had a vampire ST, and then we had a werewolf ST. So we were kind of able to, you know, build it around the concept of having 40 people for 4 GMs. But I've heard of like games that get really big of LARP that can be in the hundreds and stuff, and they only have a couple of GMs. But it's just you
That
just
sounds like
gotta let the players do
such
what
a
they want.
nightmare.
Yeah.
That sounds so horrible. Usually we'd only have like 20 people show up. I mean, even when it was 27 people, but you'd have an option to like call it in or write it in basically. You
Hmm.
know, it's like, oh, okay, I'm doing these things. Here's my maneuvers. Here's what I'm doing in terms of like what my character and power structure are doing for movements, kind of thing. Um, so you had a call-in option, which really helped retain players and like attract players, which was weird. Um,
Hmm.
because, like I said, we'd have 20 people show up, and we'd have usually a main storyteller, and then we'd have assistant storytellers, and we usually had three. It was usually me. There was a buddy named Shay, and there's a couple others. But if there weren't the three harpies keeping track of everybody's stuff, I mean, it would have never worked. I mean, it was so beyond one storyteller and like one person keeping it together. I mean, I don't know. It seriously took the efforts of 7 people, like, actively putting in a couple hours every week at least, you know?
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too is that we did like this, focus on we're gonna do it at a Gen Con event, one shot, just bring everybody together. We go back the next year, but we'd had completely different players. Some returns, but the idea was that it was just an open event that we kind of had once a year. With some other kind of events that we kind of threw throughout the year to a certain degree too, but in general, though, we didn't have this constant every. Was it a weekly game that you were doing, or is it a monthly, or?
It was weekly, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, it was
weekly,
once a week.
you're really every single week you've got 20, like you said, what, like starting off with a smaller amount, but getting up to like 20 people, at least, that you're plus all the write-ins and stuff like that, so you have that 30 plus kind of people that you're kind of dealing with on a weekly basis. And then and I'm guessing that you did open character creation, right? So you didn't so you let anybody who comes in create a character. um,
It was limited to tradition clans,
mhm.
but that was about the only limitation, I think. I mean, like, I was playing a Tremere, um, but it was great. That was definitely one of the best role-playing experiences I think I've ever had. I mean, like, it was fantastic.
That's awesome to hear. That is really great. I've been in some long term, weekly or bi-monthly or monthly LARPs and stuff like that. Did a little bit of storytelling, and it takes a lot, and it can be really rewarding. Um, so you sounds like you got into like vampire. Was it primarily just LARP that you did with it, or did you do any tabletop as well?
No, lots of tabletop. Probably 90% tabletop, maybe
Okay.
10 to 20% LARP. Yeah.
And and you started off with Vampire, but what other Worlds of Darkness games did you kind of get into, and how was that transition for you, and did that influence, like, was it, when you learned about mages, was it like, oh, okay, so now I'm going to introduce this into my game world when you're GMing, or did you see your GMs also include any of the extra game lines in their storytelling, or was it very much, we're playing Vampire, we're only going to talk about vampires?
I've had one or two storytellers that were like very like, this is it. This is the only world we're gonna mess with. That was more towards like the first implosion of like White Wolf, you know, when everything's kind of like Hannah and uh, Horizon Realms were falling apart and everything's, you know, everything's crazy. Nobody wanted all that. You know, everybody wanted to be in a continuous world so they can continue their stories, kind of things. But before that, everybody was definitely crossing splats. You know, it was like, okay, we're definitely gonna have a werewolf, or definitely gonna have a vampire in the mage game, or definitely gonna, you know, everything was running into each other quite happily. And I think it was, for me, when I'd run, I really liked introducing things that didn't fit into books, because everybody I played with was like not just a dabbler; they were all like serious about it. And, you know, they had all read the same core books as me. So if I put in there like something that's not quite a vampire, not quite a fae, but it's not a Keocid, you know, then it's fun. It's interesting. I mean, like, our podcast is full of things that we did an epilogue, and like I said, the guy who's running it, I've been playing with him for years and years and years, and some of the things I still don't know what they were exactly. I'm like, what is a mole person? I mean, in terms of a white wolf cheat, if I was to make it, is it a femori? I mean, you know, there's things that it could be,
Right,
then,
there's a lot of
but it's
play
better.
in the world where you can introduce something that is not part of the books, you know, and try and make it yourself and be like, okay, you've run into, you know, and you can even take stuff that already has something, but it's like, well, you ran into a mummy, my mummy, which was the whoa, and it had like bandages on it, and it did, you know, it attacked, you know, the museum or whatever, you know, but then it's like, but then there are mummies, and there's a different, you know, and you find out about that, but then you can be like, well, what was my mummy? You know, was it a wraith? Was it, was it something inhabiting that body? Was it a spirit, you know, manifesting, or, you know, and you can go off into all these different realms, and you can either use, you know, already canonical stuff to explain other supernatural things that get misinterpreted as being, you know, oh, that was a mummy. No, that was just a wraith that jumped into the body of a mummified thing, and tried, you know, causing chaos because they love the fear of passion, you know. So it sounds like you guys kind of did you see like a difference between using and kind of crossing the different stuff, adding those kind of elements? Was it different for LARP comparatively to tabletop for you, or did you kind of feel like that was similar as to how you guys kind of introduced and was able to kind of do? Because I always feel like tabletop is a little bit more freelance. You can kind of do whatever you want. You're only interacting with, you know, five, you know, six, seven people or something like that. Whereas in LARP, you have to take into consideration that there's like, you know, 20 to 30 other people that are involved in this, and they might not, you know, care for uh, off the wall ideas.
Yeah, no, I found the same. LARPs, they tended to stay in their lane. It was kind of special when they threw in a vampire or a wraith to a you know, threw in something not from that LARP.
Hmm.
But most of them try to stay in that one lane, because I don't know. I found that you're able to drag people into a LARP, weirdly enough, that are dabblers, that are not like, "Ooh, I'm going to read the whole book. I really, really want to know this. I want to do this." You know,
Hmm. They were there for like the social
um,
interaction, fun, and stuff like that.
right? So, you know, people that do acting, or people that just like poetry and story, you know, they're usually down for a LARP. It's not that big a ask, I guess.
Hmm.
You know,
But you found
um,
in tabletop though that it was a little bit more of like you could kind of go outside of the box and kind of play with. Is there anything that you've done that was like way outside of the box? Like I remember, you know, back in the day when I first started running RPGs for Vampire the Masquerade for my friends. I remember my players, we were dabbling in Demon, which before Demon had anything out, so we were just making up our own demons and stuff. And then my players caught one, and they were like, "I want to Diablerize. We all want to like mass Diablerize this demon," and I was like, sure, like, okay. So and then like I made one, like he became like a fire, like half fire demon, where it was like now you're not damaged by fire anymore, but you are damaged by water. So don't get out in the rain anymore. One like became like Medusa, and I can't remember what the other ones, but like each one got like this like weird demonesque kind of power behind them, and then they got like a spaceship. I mean, so I like went way out of the box. Have you had any experiences with that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah, no, like one time I was playing vampire and I was running, and I threw a unicorn in there. I mean, like it was set in like the woods of Seattle, and it it was like fairy blood times a million. I mean, like it was insane. I mean, like, and they harvested half of it, and they sold it, but it was like extremely addictive, and they ended up in a power battle over it with like the nearest prince because they were kind of in an uncontrolled area and like a gangrel group that was like moving through, and like it became this whole like I threw it in just for spice, and it became this whole like plot pivot. It was really exciting.
Yeah, I really love it when you add in something that you think is just going to be this minor addition to the game, or uh, it's something that you didn't even think was going to be even really anything, and you just kind of threw it out there, and all of a sudden your players grab onto it, and it's like 10 sessions later you're like, wow, this is the focal point of my entire story now. That one guy that you met down in the alleyway that all of a sudden like introduced you to this whole different world that I had no idea it's just a drug deal that you were going to do, but now you've taken over the entire cartel.
That's true. That definitely happens.
So what kind of gaming have you been up to lately? How have you been handling the you've I'm guessing you've been doing like more Discord and stuff. Do you do any in-person gaming right now, or?
None. Me and the storyteller from Imbligo del Diablo are developing a Mage LARP rule set for after the pandemic stuff.
Mhm.
So we've been kind of shooting a lot of stuff back and forth with each other on that. We just finished recording our second season of Umbilical del Diablo, which is actually it's actually Operation Daedalus Defiance. It's still ODD. We're the odd troop, I guess. So,
Mhm.
but we just wrapped that, and one of the players from that is running in between a mage game right now for us. Um, but the Umbilical del Diablo podcast, we've gotten so much good feedback on it. It's just been fantastic. It's like I think we just hit 2,000 views or 2,000 listens, and everybody seems to really enjoy it. Our editors, Sam and Ginger, they do a really good job of like splicing it together and taking out all of our and our goofs and having fun, in between just chit chatting. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's
That's
awesome.
been our main focus.
You'll definitely have to drop a link of that in our self promotion stuff as well, and then definitely want to check that out. I actually wasn't aware that you had a podcast, and it sounds like you're getting started, kind of like what we're doing right now. You're about the point that we're kind of at right now, where we're starting to get more downloads and listens and stuff like that, and that's awesome. I'll have to definitely check that out. So what is it, a actual play that that the podcast is a focus on, or if you want to just kind of elaborate more on what your podcast is?
Yeah, the podcast is an actual play. It's like I said, it's called Umbligo del Diablo, which means like the devil's navel. I actually learned about you guys
Oh,
from Terry's
I know who
Mage the
you are
podcast.
now. All of a sudden, like it just
Yeah.
clicked.
So I was like, oh wow, this is cool. I have only had a chance to listen to like one of your guys' episodes though, and you guys were having like a race in a Horizon realm, and it was a pretty cool episode. But that's all I've had a chance to listen to.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I got to listen to a little bit of your stuff too, because yeah, me and you we're on the same thing with Terry. And your name sounded when you started saying, because I can't even pronounce that, El Diablo.
We couldn't like the first 4 episodes, all of us were struggling so hard. It was ridiculous. We're like, what? And then like it clicked eventually when we're like umbilical cord. Okay, umbligo del
Umbligo.
diablo. Yeah,
Diablo.
that's a one. That's the first one. Is like, oh my god, what the fuck? I'm just
Yeah, that's awesome though, because yeah, I was listening to that. I really liked the interview you did with Terry was really well done, and I definitely wanted to check out more of your podcast actual play for that. So that's awesome. I'll definitely get links up and everything in the show notes for that. And I think at one point I want to have you come back on after I've watched a bunch of your stuff and just kind of talk about running actual plays, because that's something that I'm just personally getting into at this point, and really excited to see that growing, the community kind of growing on that, and to see just like what kind of things that you've kind of gone with, and because like we've gone with the live play kind of aspect that we're throw like, because I'm just like, I don't want to edit. So, I mean, it's a little bit of laziness that's definitely involved in it, but there's also a genuine kind of like the ums and ahs kind of like, that's just, I feel like almost ever since Barack Obama, although maybe because he just was so good with it, but I feel, and maybe this isn't true, but I feel like ums and ahs are back. Like, baby, we could do it. You just gotta, you just gotta have it. Okay, this is what we're gonna do.
Are you saying that ineloquence is the new eloquence? Is that your argument?
Yeah, yeah.
That's an interesting thought. I like that.
I just remember when we first
Wow.
started podcasting, one of my buddies, one of my cousins actually that listened to our podcast was like, I could hear that you cut out all your ums and uhs and you spliced it up and you were editing it. Don't do that. I want to hear a natural conversation with you and the people you're interviewing and talking with, instead of having it all seem pretty. It's the people like that live aspect of it to a certain degree. One of the things though that I started doing for the actual play is I definitely took out all dead air that's over like 1.5 seconds, because there are times when it's like, okay, go ahead, roll your dice, and 30 seconds later it's like, okay, this is the result we got. I'll see like the podcast go from like, I don't know, like an hour, or like we have usually about 2.5 hours, give or take 3 hours, and then I'll see it shrink to like an hour and 45 minutes. It's like, whoa, we got out a lot of dead air.
Yeah. When we talk about actual plays, next time we'll talk about how crazy the scale is from actual time to podcast time. But this actual play stuff's really cool. We try to shoot for like a radio drama style is I guess more the
Hmm.
idea. Um,
And I
it,
really
it,
like
it's
that
worked out really
actually.
well.
That was, I don't feel like you're over edited to a certain, you're not like just cutting out like it, you have like a very specific goal of producing a product. And I really liked the episode that I listened to. I just felt it flowed really well, because I grabbed like one of the later episodes, because I like jump in, midway through into stuff, and feel like there's preludes to the show that I'm watching when it's just the first episode. It's like I always jump in the second season. It's like, okay, now I need to watch the first season now that I'm done with the second season.
Well, the first 2 or 3 episodes were rough because a lot of it was like mic discipline, because you're not used to being recorded for something that's going to be edited. So you're like, hold on, I got to mute in between when I'm not talking, so that car in the background isn't a thing, or. So I don't know. It's just there was a lot to learn for everybody, and then our editors, like I said, they do a great job. They work really hard at it, so that helps a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So I forget though, what's the gaming system that you guys are using? I thought it was in it Mage, uh with elements
Uh,
of.
it's it's made with the homebrew kind of like fifth edition that we made up. I mean, it's.
Yeah, did you added like there was a special thing that you added into the character concept. What was that?
We have goals and fears. There's also a sanity mechanic, which is
Sanity, that's what it
pretty
was.
hot. Yeah, especially in the first season. The second season's it's not as like crushing because the second season's set in Oakland in Northern California. But the first season's set in Umbilical del Diablo, and it's like this weird middle of nowhere southwestern town where like it may as well be 1850 for the most part. Um, so the cosmic horrors and craziness and stuff like that. It's kind of Call of Cthulhu-esque in that way. Like you
Hmm.
can go crazy that it starts to affect your magic more, and it starts to affect the actions you can take. And it I didn't think it was going to be a big part of it going into it, and it ended up being like a lot of a lot of the story pivots and a lot of like the real, like, gritty feelings that, like, you get down to that juicy, like, "Oh gosh, this person has to do this because," and you really like, the motivations are, like, so, I don't know, present and, like, reminded with the sanity mechanics we used. It really added to the depth of the game.
Yeah, I really liked that concept. I thought that meshed really well with Mage, and when I heard about that, I was like, "Oh, make Call of Cthulhu combining with Mage, so you kind of get it. Just it was perfect. It was one of those like I just was like, that is a beautiful way of doing it. Like I was super awe inspired when I was listening to that podcast. But yeah, so definitely. What are some of the projects that you're kind of looking to work on in the future here? Is there anything that you guys are looking to expand? Or what season are you on right now with is it coming to the end of second season or
Well, we've recorded the end of the second season, but editing time. So we
Mhm.
kind of try to for a release. We try for a release one a week, one every week and a half, right in there. Um, but we're probably 3/4 through the first season as far as release goes. Like I said, the second season's called Operation Daedalus Defiance, so it still has its same ODD acronym.
Mhm.
Our third season we haven't started. Um, Same gaming groups playing a different game, just an in between game that's not actually, I think she's recording it, but I don't think she's gonna broadcast them. But what was I saying? Third season's gonna be Sailpunk, so set in the Caribbean. That's gonna start in about a month and a half. I'm really excited about it. It's gonna be like a 1700s. So Mage 1700s in the Caribbean, Pirates of the Caribbean plus magic, I guess.
Wow,
I'm excited.
that's gonna be epic. That's awesome. And that. So when would you expect season three to start getting published out there? Because that's gonna be something that as soon as that is getting published, I want you back on here and I want to talk about that. I'm gonna listen to that. That sounds really awesome.
Well, season three, I think we just convinced our storyteller is going to be live streamed and then edited and then re-released
Oh, that's
because
awesome.
we've been testing with our super fan Begricula and a couple other listeners from some of our uh, extended gaming group families
Hmm.
um, via Twitch, via Discord, trying to decide between the two, but just in a limited fashion. So season three is going to be live streamed and then, like I said, edited down to our more of our radio drama style. So they'll be both in existence theoretically. Is the working plan right now. So I'm like super excited about it.
That's gonna be
Um,
awesome. I'm gonna have to. So, are you doing that on Twitch then?
that's pretty much what we've decided. It might end up going back to Discord depending on software editing times, new learning timetables, stuff like that for our editors mainly. But I don't know.
Well, yeah. If
We'll
you
see.
if you
But
broadcast
most
over
likely,
Twitch, I'm gonna definitely follow you guys and definitely give you one of my Prime subs one of these times for sure. And possibly some other stuff because, but I that's awesome. I'm really into the live play, record it live, put it out there live, and then go back and edit it and create a substance that can be a little bit more of a product. But the getting to see both of those, that would be awesome.
I'm hoping it brings more people into Mage. I mean, I know we've caught at least like 2 dozen people with like the Mage bug because it's my favorite role playing game, like by far. I mean, Changeling and Vampire are close seconds, but I mean, like I'm just so crazy passionate about it. I mean, like anybody I can, I'm like, so oh, you role play? Have you played Mage? Here's what you need. You know, I just it's been my favorite game for 20 something years,
I'm
you know?
I'm I'm right there with you, man. Right there with you. That is I got involved in Vampire the Masquerade and D&D in the beginning, and then when I found Mage, I was like, I found my role playing game. Now, if I can just convince other people to play this game, that would be awesome. And we kind of talked about this, I think, a little bit before the show, or maybe it was at the beginning of the show, but you were talking about how you were doing a technocracy game and how you liked that as like a dip your toe in as well for Mage. I know, and we were talking about Vampire dipping your toe in, but I like the concept of bringing people into Mage and explaining the technocracy first, the concepts that, this is an easy thing for you to grab paradigm because it's our paradigm. Like you just embrace it as a super science and just take it to Star Trek levels or whatever, super science fiction-y kind of thing. But Mage was the hard one to try and explain to somebody. You need to limit yourself. Like you have the possibility of doing anything, but you have a way of interpreting the world and how you do things. So when you're Spider-Man, Spider-Man can only do Spider-Man things. Spider-Man may have a 5 in time because he can do something crazy with it or whatever. Well, it would be like 5 in matter or whatever. But he might only be able to do one really crazy thing with that because he's Spider-Man. He can only do what Spider-Man does. You have to. Their paradigm can grow, but they're still limited to who they are.
That's funny that you bring up Spider-Man. I had used him before to explain Mage to somebody also. So, but yeah, when I run people through Mage for the first time, my favorite scenario, and I've used it a lot. Used it at conventions. I've used it like just with casual gaming, game shop gaming, is haunted house. Um, 50% of the time, the haunted house is not actually haunted by ghosts, but you're like Ghostbuster brand variety technocracy. That's where you're at. You're that division of void engineers,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where you start. And everybody can wrap their head around that. I mean, like it's a science fiction paradigm that's like so present in everybody and has been since like whenever the first Ghostbuster movies came out. What was that, 83?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. It's been in our consciousness for so long that it's like, okay, we have these things, we can detect different things, we
Yeah,
can
these
trap these things,
the radar
find the
thing.
thing, catch the thing, bring it home.
Yep.
But usually the twist for that same scenario that I run is that it's not a ghost at all. It's a vampire that's summoning ghosts, and you're like, oh my god, and that's enough of a hook to bring people in so many times. I mean, just like I've got so many people started on Mage with that same like, I think like I really feel like I should publish it as like a little like starter adventure,
Oh yeah, and
and I
drive through
give it to
RPG.
the
Do
world.
that. Yeah, do that, man.
Right?
That's a because I like that idea as like a starter. Here's an introductory to Mage. I like the idea that you start off as the technocracy because it's just you can wrap your mind immediately around the Ghostbuster, like you said, technocracy, sci-fi kind of thing. Almost everybody and their grandmother can even grab onto that, and you go into a haunted house and either bust, you could even do it to the point where it's not even supernatural at all, and that's it. Everything is, I could see so many different ways that you could play that to have it as a one shot that could be very diverse, that you could play it with the same person multiple times and to get a different result every time, but also give you an awesome introduction. So if you do that, I put out a pay what you will, and I will definitely, or just put whatever price you want. I'll buy that module. That's a beautiful idea, and I will run that at Gen Con.
Yeah, no,
When we're back.
there's a Mr. Withers. There's a Mr. Withers ending. It's definitely there's a Scooby Doo ending where there is nothing supernatural, but usually it's the vampire. It's usually a Giovanni. It's usually a crossover. But yeah, that's been the basic outline that I've been using it for like 15, 20 years at this point. And it's converted so many people. It's crazy.
Awesome. Yeah, that is a brilliant. So you mentioned that you run games at conventions. Did what conventions do you go to?
PAX, usually down in Austin. I did a panel year before last about like gaming with kids, gaming and scouting, designing games, stuff like that. Um, when I lived in California, I'd go to more cons, but I live in rural East Texas, so like Houston and Austin are only places that have any sort of major conventions. I've never been to any of the giant, like I guess PAX is pretty big these days.
PAX is pretty big.
I've never been. I've never been to like Gen Con or anything cool like that. Maybe when things start back.
I highly suggest it. Gen Con is an experience, possibly not this year, just because it's going to be a lot harder to get into Gen Con, possibly. There's a lot of questions up in the air, but if you haven't had it, we've got our tickets from 2020, so it gives us like this little bit of a easier to get in for us. But definitely, I would suggest at the upcoming years to check out Gen Con. It is an experience. Like the first time you go is literally just shock and awe of the like massive amount of. I mean, you might with PAX. I think I don't know how big was. I can't remember. I think because Gen Con got up to like 100,000 people was the like the last
maxed
couple
out
of,
at 50,000.
PAX maxed out at 50,000.
No, Gen Con did.
Gen Con didn't max out at 50,000. It maxed out at 100,000. I'm almost 100% sure of that. Like 99% sure.
Also, I'm not talking much because my bandwidth is absolute crap today. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I noticed that you've been a little bit quiet and a little bit still. Like every once in a while, you won't move.
I can hear you guys about 50% of the time in real time. So,
oh,
Oof,
ouch.
that's rough, man.
You gotta love doing it live. And I'm in the same area as him, and my internet has been doing weird stuff too. Not right now, but lately it's been kind of hit or miss on my internet. I'm kind of feel like we should petition our provider and be like, ah. Well, I think we are coming up a little bit on the hour here, a little bit before, but I think we'll go ahead and wrap things up. But I definitely want to bring you back on, talk about some. I want to get into a little bit more of your actual play and maybe just talk to you offline as well about some actual play type stuff and get you back on here to kind of do a deep dive on that with you. And really go into that, what you guys are building, what you guys are doing here, especially as you guys lead up to your third season. If you're going to do that live, I'd like to kind of schedule out something in the future where we can kind of sit down and before you guys kind of go live, kind of help you kind of hope, put it out there for you, do a little bit of advertising and talking about what you guys are going to be doing with that third season. But before we go, is there any shout outs that you want to give, any projects that you want to talk about? Anything kind of just open the floor to you to kind of talk about whatever you'd like.
Let's see. What do I want to talk about? Just in Bluego del Diablo. And I'd totally love to be back on and talk about the Sailpunk season that's coming up. Like I said, we'll probably start that in a month and a half. It is middle of April now, so probably June, first week of June, if I had to guess. So I'm super excited about that. It'll still be the Odd Troop, so you can find us on Anchor and all that good stuff at Odd Troop. If you just Google Umblugo del Diablo, which is ridiculous to spell, you will find us that way too.
And we'll get links in the show notes and on our website as
play
well.
Mage. Go
play
play Mage.
Yes.
Teach other people how to play Mage, so I have more people to play with.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So yeah, we'll get those show notes up, and we'll also make sure to put it on our website that we have, theageofstories.com. We'll have a nice little, we got a friends of the show kind of link there. You can go and check out, and we'll make sure to get you put up there as well to check out that actual play podcast that you've got going there. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap it on up here. Make sure to check out Try It Con coming up at May 14th and the 15th. We plan on doing some stuff there. We're actually going to host a little bit of a meeting and kind of talk about what we're going to be hosting there at Try It Con, and we're really excited about that coming up here. May 14th, 15th, put it on your calendar. I really can't wait to see what kind of games are going to be offered right now. Personally, I'm going to be trying to get like a mage and at least a mage and a demon game. I might be doing some other games as well. And if you enjoyed the show here, you can like us, follow us on Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, podcast, Podbean, all of your favorite podcasting downloadable sites. We're all over the place. We're even on Pandora, which I don't know. I didn't even know that could be a thing until I was like, oh, it tells me press a button to be on Pandora. So yeah, check out our website as well, theageofstories.com. It's got links to the friends of the show, as well as setting information for Madison Under Siege setting that we will be using for our convention games, and much, much more. Don't forget to tune in to our Mage the Ascension game, Techno Gate, on Mondays at 7 p.m. Central Time. You can get that on Twitch at twitch.tv/Golden Age Stories. And remember, that's Golden spelled with Guldan, because we're special. If you like this podcast, we do record live every Sunday at 7 p.m. You can come on in and ask any questions that you feel like, or flood our chat with a bunch of emoticons, because, you know, that's what people do in the future, I guess. Well, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much, Matt, for coming on to the show here, and can't wait to have you back on here. And you have a great day.
And if anybody can hear me, it maxed out at 70,000 in Gen Con, maxed out at 70,000 in 2019.
What? Okay, then
yes.
Then like 100,000 tickets were sold, something like that. There was like a thing about 100,000. I know. Anyway, good night.